Me realizing that I actually wasn't recording. Hi, hello, and welcome back to a new episode of Now What Was I Talking About? And this time around, I tried to have a plan. I really did. I really wanted to. And I ended up not watching any of the things that I sought out to do. So now it's kind of feeling like, you know what? We're just gonna vibe. We're just gonna do what I want to do, I guess, and go from there. Yeah. So I planned on watching Deliverance 2024. It just came out. People were already talking about it. People were talking about how bad it is or whatever. And yeah, I didn't watch that yet. I'm like, maybe I'll just hold off until October to talk about it because, October, Halloween, scary movie. And then I was going to watch Abby from 1974. It kind of came out on the coattails of The Exorcist. And to the point where Warner Brothers shut them the fuck down because they're like, this is too derivative of our thing. And I'm like, how? She gets possessed by a sex demon and is married to, well, for one, it's a woman and she gets possessed by a sex demon and she's married to like a pastor. There's all this stuff. I'm like, it's completely different, but it did make money and it was a cast of black people and it's like it was the 70s, so of course there's people who were like, I don't know, I think that was just racially charged and they didn't want them to succeed. So very sort of black exploitation possession film that I definitely wanted to see. My mom actually saw it when she was when she was a child, and I kind of calculated, and I'm like, she would have been 6 when this came out. So if she saw it in theaters, before it got taken out of theaters, that would be pretty crazy. I gotta ask her about that again. Um, yeah, so the other thing I was going to talk about was Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, which is I'm like so many things I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about The Crow, but briefly. I was going to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, and then I was going to talk about Deliverance. Ooh, okay. And then I switched around what I was going to do, so it was going to be me briefly talking about The Crow because so many people have been criticizing it and have kind of felt like a hate boner for it. And I'm like, did it stick to kind of the idea of the original comic? And I'm like, yeah, more or less, like two people in love and then they tragically die and yada yada. Crow resurrects him to seek revenge or whatever. I'm like, sure, yeah, they did that. you know? FKA Twigs is in it. One of Skarsgård's in it is in it. Bill Skarsgård is the Crow. It's kind of weird to think of it as like a remake because yeah, sure they use their names, but it's like nothing like the comic. It's nothing like the '90s movie aside from the names, and it's like, oh, okay. I saw somebody criticizing that they were drug users as like a means to sort of say that like well the bad people in the original movie were also like both drug users and drug dealers and I'm like uh, if we think about it it's like uh that kind of rhetoric comes from like the war on drugs propaganda that was really heavily being used to criminalize black and brown people during like the 80s and 90s. I think it was mostly the 90s, but whatever. And it's like people who are addicts are not inherently bad people. And it's not to say that the people in this new Crow movie are addicts. They kind of seem like they're doing more party drugs than anything. But anyway, I kind of, I got to see it for free. I kind of went in head empty, and I was like, well, that was something. We went somewhere. We we got from point A to point B, I guess. And later on, the fight scenes were really good. So I was like, ooh, okay. He just speared himself and then killed the guy behind him. Nice. And then like he blew off somebody's head, but you could like see it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was what happened. This is a lot more gory than I thought it would be. But anyway, I feel like, was I talking about Yu-Gi-Oh? So Yu-Gi-Oh! Season Zero, which is like the unofficial term of it, the unofficial title of it, is essentially the first adaptation of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's the first what 59 chapters of the manga, and it initially came out in 1998, I believe. Yeah, 1998. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters came out in 2000. So, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a jump from 1998 to 2000, and with like Yu-Gi-Oh! I like calling it season zero because it really is, because it never got aired in America. We only got the Duel Monsters version. Uh, and season zero is very different, very, very different from Duel Monsters. I wanted to watch all 27 episodes of the show and kind of break it down, but I don't know. I get to a certain point and like, this is just ridiculous. But ridiculous in a good way. Um, I just didn't feel like binging it really. But anyway, it's like it's still Yugi, Yugimoto and his friends. His bullies that then turn into friends. He figures out that puzzle and everything. He's sort of possessed by like an Egyptian god or whatever. Well, Egyptian spirit, and but instead of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Duel Monsters, the game, he sort of gets into games with like kind of bad people. Like there's episodes where um they find out that the one of the girls is working a part-time job because she needs extra money, and they're not supposed to work part-time jobs. It's like middle schoolers. I don't know how old these people are. Uh which is more confusing because Yugi is so short. But apparently he gets taller later on in the show. So I'm like, so did he just skip some grades? Is he really smart? How old is anyway, anyway. At the same time a criminal escaped and prison, and he's on the run, and somebody keeps stealing stuff before he can steal the thing. And they realize that this criminal is in the same burger shop that the girl works at, and come to find out her boss is actually also a criminal who was stealing the things before the escape criminal could steal them. And then her boss takes her hostage, and Yugi's like, oh no, that's my crush, also my friend. You're not going to do that. And his other personality comes out of nowhere, and he's like, you want to play a game? Haha. You can kill me with your gun or set her free. Haha. but he's got like this creepy voice. His face looks kind of creepy and all this stuff. But anyway, he wins the game, and this guy gets sent to the shadow realm or whatever, and he thinks he's on fire and he's not, and now he's like forced to believe he's on fire for the rest of his life, basically. So in Yu-Gi-Oh! Season Zero, or more so in the manga, really, Yugi is just kind of killing people left and right, honestly. People don't really die in the show, I guess, but they certainly did in the manga. I was like, oh my god, that person just died. you know? Anyway, so there's that. Another topic I wanted to talk about is Friday 13th. It was literally Friday 13th the other day. Am I recording this the day before? Maybe. But yeah, it was Friday the 13th, and whenever it is Friday the 13th, I think about the movie Friday the 13th, not just like all of the movies and Jason Voorhees, but I think about the original first movie. And this is when I'm definitely gonna get into spoilers about this movie, even though it came out in 1980. You had time to watch this if you wanted to, but it's like going back and watching this movie, knowing who Jason Voorhees is, and like the hockey mask and everything like that, and like him being this larger than life, you can't kill him sort of guy, and then you watch the first movie, and again, spoilers, but he's not even in the first movie. Like he's not the killer. And you also see a young Kevin Bacon get killed. But anyway, it's like, yeah, he's not the killer. It ends up being his mom. His mom is the killer. And she is acting her ass off, first of all. Her name is Betsy Palmer, the actress. She is doing an amazing, amazing job. Being like creepy. Well, it's you get the reveal near the end that it's the mom, but essentially, sort of the lore about this place is like a young boy drowned. So the camp got shut down, and you find this out in the first movie too. So young boy drowned. The camp gets shut down. So right now, all these people are coming together to bring this camp back. Camp Crystal Lake, which is a real place, but I don't think the person who created this knew that. But I'm like, also, Camp Crystal Lake sounds really generic. Like that could be anywhere. But and yeah. Anyway, so you find out later on that from uh Jason's mom, especially that he was a what? How did she describe him? He was just like a nice little boy. He needed to be watched or whatever. And his camp counselors were off having sex or whatever and being distracted. And that's why she's killing all these people. Or more specifically, she's killing all the young people having sex on the campgrounds because this reminds her of how her son, through being neglected, was killed because he drowned in the lake when the camp counselors are supposed to be watching him. So I'm like, yeah, I get that, but that's like trauma and like the people you're killing, it's not their fault. And there's no kids around. Like, what's going on? But yeah, and then so in the second movie, oh wait, no. So at the end of the first movie, she gets killed, of course. You have the final girl, and she's on the lake, and then all of a sudden, this like creepy, decayed kid, still a kid, shows up and out of the water and grabs her And it's like, oh, there might be another one. And so then you get in the second one. This is Jason's first appearance, but his hockey mask isn't there. Uh, in this version, he's a scrawny dude, and he's only wearing like a potato sack. He's wearing a potato sack. He doesn't even have the hockey mask. Um, and now it's like him. He's killing people because it's like a mix of wanting to avenge his mom and also wanting to avenge himself. And yeah, but the third movie is when we get the hockey mask, when we get the iconic. Well, I say iconic, but they change it up every time. But the third movie is when we get the hockey mask. And yeah, I wanted to rewatch it honestly because it is really good. Um and it makes me remember that like horror movies are definitely better when you're like connecting to, and this is me saying this in general, where you're connecting to the cast of people and you're like, "Oh yeah, they're just regular people." Yada yada. And then all of a sudden they start getting picked off. um Yeah, it's like how I watched X a few months ago. Yeah, I watched it in July because we were gonna watch Maxine. So I watched Pearl, which is the second movie. And I wanted to watch Maxine, but I hadn't seen X. And X is so interesting because it's a group of people renting out a space in like the 70s, and they're essentially shooting porno. And then, of course, they get killed off too. And then Pearl, well, they get killed off by like this older couple. The woman's name is Pearl. So then in Pearl, we get her backstory, and it's all Mia Goth essentially. Like Mia Goth plays two characters in X. She's Maxine, I think. No, the Maxine is the new name she gives herself. I forgot. I think. And then Pearl is the older woman, but it is Mia Goth as Pearl, like just in old makeup and whatnot, which is crazy. It was like a really good job. Like there are scenes where Pearl is touching Mia Goth's character, and I'm like, how did they even film that? Because that looks really real. Like that's just an older person. I mean, they obviously use like body doubles or something, but still, I was like, this looks really good. um, but yeah, in that movie, it's like, oh yeah, this is they're just filming in a porno. Cool. And most of it, and I think Kate Cudi is in it. Is he in it? I gotta look that up real quick. Oh, okay. It came out in 2022, which is crazy. Internet is going slow. Okay. Yeah, Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi's in it, which is wild. Um, but yeah, I didn't think I would talk about X or Pearl or Maxine, which I did really like Maxine. I know they said there wouldn't necessarily be a fourth movie, but I could see how it could lead into a fourth movie. But I don't necessarily plan on talking about that today. It was just a little tangent as I go on these tangents all the time. But yeah, so what was I talking about? I went over Yugioh season 0, Friday the 13th a little bit. And I think finally, I just wanted to talk about the thing that I actually watched. And that is How to Die Alone on Hulu. I mean, it's on ABC, I think, but it's on Hulu. And that's with Natasha Rothwell. I love her from Insecure. She was playing like a side character, but I wanted more of her because she's really funny. Uh, and I'm like, there's two different synopses, but maybe I'll just read the one off of Hulu because Hulu would tell me the true definition. Okay, that is the description for the episode and not the description for the series. Because there's only going to be 8 episodes. Um, yeah, I'll go with this one. So, this is the synopsis. Mel is a broke JFK airport employee who has never experienced love. A near death accident inspires her to dream and live life again. Another description made a point to call her as fat and black, and I was like, I mean, yeah, those are descriptors. Yeah. Nice. Oh yeah, IMDb was like, she's neurotic and fat and a black woman. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, so I know that she is also the creator of the show too, and she's starring in it. And it's been it's definitely been interesting. They start off the episodes, there's only at 4 right now. But they start off each episode getting sort of interviewing people with a question, and the question is kind of the theme of the episode, which has been pretty cool. And like Mel as a character, she's 35. She feels like she's not really going anywhere in her life. She says that her family is disappointed with her and things like that. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. That's relatable. Um, I don't know about the family part. With myself, I'm like, I don't care if y'all think that. I don't even know, really. you know? I'm like, I am employed and I live by myself. Uh, but I mean, some of her fears are like definitely some stuff that I'm like, because so the way her accident is basically her going to knock off IKEA and building a shelf or cabinet, really, and that falls over her while she's eating crab rangoon, and then she wakes up in the hospital with like a slight fracture on her rib because of the compressions. And like, you can definitely see somebody for getting your rib broken while they're trying to bring you back to life. I mean, it's kind of messed up, but it's also messed up you broke their rib, you know. But anyway, so she is yeah, she wakes up rib broken. She's got like a cast on her arm and all this stuff. And I'm like, I definitely built furniture in my apartment by myself. Haha. I mean, and then, I injured my foot like a few years ago, right, like a week after I got a kitten. My boy, my baby. And yeah, that kind of it sucked, living by myself and not really having anyone to like physically come into my house and like check on me and bring me stuff and all this stuff. Not that I didn't have like friends who offered to do things, but I'm so depresso and like, well, you don't have to do this for me. Oh, woo. I mean, I'm less like that now, especially after like my dad passed away, because I'm like, no, if you're offering to help, I definitely could need the help. Like putting my pride aside and whatnot, and just being like, no, yeah, like you're doing this because you care about me, and I love that you care about me, and that it's nice. It's a nice feeling to know that there's people out there that would do stuff to help you. But um yeah, so then you know she's kind of confronted with like no one really either being available to pick her up, or I mean, yeah, honestly, it's like she had all these contacts but no one she was really close with. And her best friend, also, this is her birthday, by the way, this is all happening on her birthday, and her best friend bails on her but lies about it and says it's because his family needed him to do like a dinner soiree or something when really he was fucking somebody. And I was like, damn, why didn't he just say that? Or I don't know. It was just wild. Anyway, and she she ends up having to call her brother, who we later find out is dating and cheating on his wife by dating because he's not telling these women that he is married at all. um, and like even from her getting picked up by her brother and that conversation, I was like, oh, so your brother doesn't even like you either? Jesus Christ. Like her brother is kind of a piece of shit. I was like, oh God, why is he so rude to her? I'm definitely excited for the new episode because that's going to be like the Thanksgiving episode and we're going to meet the rest of her family. And I'm like, what kind of family do you have? Like, that's just crazy to me. But anyway, so while she's in the hospital before her brother picks her up, she meets, she's in the room next to an older woman who kind of inspires her. Talks about, like, you just have to, go out there and live your life. And then this woman ends up passing away. And, through the nurses and stuff, she finds out by eavesdropping that this woman didn't have any family, doesn't have next to kin or anything like that. So she ends up dying alone, essentially. And, that was really sad for her. That was really sad for me because I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this is going to get serious. And then I feel like they were like, we can't have it too serious. So she ends up throwing up on her face. And I was like, I don't, I don't think we had to go there. But I'm also like, yeah, she's seeing a dead body. I get it. I get it. But I mean, that wasn't even funny. But sometimes you gotta laugh because it's awkward, not because it's funny. But anyway, so slowly but surely, she kind of realizes that her best friend is kind of holding her back in a way. Like he's rich. His dad is the CEO of JFK or something like that. Something like that. I'm paying attention, but I wasn't. and and I'm also kind of blurring all the episodes together. I'm like piecing together like this is what happened through, like I'm giving you a summary essentially of what happened. And her no, and his dad is encouraging her to do like the managerial uh it's called high flyers essentially. So it would come with a pay bump, she'd be a manager. And her best friend is like, no, I don't want you to do it because of his dad or whatever. And, his dad is there offering her this while the friend is there too. And then as they're leaving, his dad is like, when are you going to grow the fuck up? You're 30 fucking 5 or whatever to him. I'm like, oh my God, like, don't use her as a means to make your son feel bad. Like, really fucking weird. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I'm also like, I get not wanting her to be involved with his dad, but he's the rich one. She is broke. She somehow has a 30K bill from this near death experience. Actually, no, she did die for like 3 minutes, but she doesn't have money. So I'm like, why would you hold her back from something that could make her more money just because you don't like your dad? I'm like, you're still not going to cut him out of your life, are you? You're literally working under him right now. Like, I don't fully understand Rory's character so far. Like, that's his name. And like slowly but surely, she's like making all these other friends that are like positive influences on her life. And he's so negative, and I'm like, ah, like he seems cool, but I do want him to grow as a character. Like hopefully he does. Hopefully he I don't know, grows a backbone against his dad or something. Like does something on its own. Like, it's cool that he's dating for the first time, but he really did just, like, abandon her on her birthday for some dick, essentially, because he usually dicks down and then blocks. So, I don't know. It's drama. And, of course, there's, like, her still, like, being in love with her manager slash coworker, who is also encouraging her to do the high flyers thing. And they used to date for like a few months, and now he's getting married. He sent off a invite to everyone that they're gonna get married in Hawaii. And she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go. She ended up getting the dead woman's stuff and checked out her apartment and found out she had a dog. So she's like, okay, we're gonna take the dog because she has no next kin or anything. The dog would have been, I don't know, could have anything could have happened to that dog, Bubba. The dog's name is Bubba, and which kind of reminds me of another dog from a different show called Betty. The show is not called Betty. The show is called Will Trent. The dog is called Betty. They make her a little Instagram. She's a little chihuahua. Very cute. Will Trent is like a procedural. He's a detective. Love that show. Can't wait for season 3. I will talk about that eventually. But anyway, so yeah, she's got that going on, and now she's doing the high flyers thing, and she's basically not talking to Rory anymore. At this point, I think this is like episode 3. And then she's kind of flirtatious with one of her classmates in the high flyers class, and she's now friends with her neighbor and a bartender who gave her a drink on the night when she left the hospital. Uh, because she just decided to get out of her brother's fucking car because he was like berating her and being a piece of shit to her. So, yeah, now she's got 2 girlfriends, and that's been cute. And where was I going with that? Oh, the bartender was trying to help her sort of unlock um if she was like maybe sexually attracted to the person in her class to sort of get her to get over her previous relationship, essentially. And it was kind of like a podcast, but it's like you listen to it, or from what it was, it seemed like you listened to it and tried to imagine the guy in place of whatever the guy is in the podcast, I guess. And so she was trying to imagine the the guy, but then she would imagine her ex essentially. And I'm like, oh, this is like a masturbation scene, and she's by herself. And whenever I see like masturbation scenes, I'm like, I think of this one from Mrs. Fisher's Murder Mysteries. I believe that's what it's called. I'm like, what is her name? Oh wait, no. Her name is Miss Fisher, I think. Yeah, yeah. I was calling her Mrs. She's not married. It's Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, and that's another procedural. She's a female detective in like the 1920s, so she's a flapper, and it's Australian. It's Australian. I love that fucking show so much. Uh, and I still need to watch the movie that they made because I'm like, does they end them together? Does they end them together? Her and her love interest, will they, won't they, love interest, because they don't end them together in the last fucking season. Which spoiler for that too. There's only 3 seasons. I definitely want to try to read the books that it's kind of based on, but not like fully based on. Anyway, to talk about this episode of Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. So there's like a woman. It's 1920s, so have like they have vibrators, but this woman was prescribed the vibrator. Okay, this is when vibrators were prescription, and then she gets electrocuted to death. And then, not to be too TMI, I watched this after um doing the deed myself. So, of course, I was like, wow, call me out. Cool. Cool. Like, what if I did get electrocuted in my house by myself and was found somehow later? And then I think at that same time, I was watching a Korean drama where this woman was eating alone and then she choked and then almost died that way too. And I'm like, I need to stop watching things where people live by themselves and then either almost die or die because, yeah, no, I don't want to be anxious about that. And so when that lives alone, but to sort of wrap it up, that's currently what I'm watching on Hulu. It's pretty funny. You know, it's protagonist in her 30s around people in the same age group, and it's always nice to like sort of watch something like that as I'm aging, you know? Like like I don't want to watch another fucking thing about people in high school or people starting college. I'm literally 31. I don't care. Like unless the college setting is like community where it is a vast majority of age ranges because that is currently how I am at a community college that I'm taking free courses at. You know, like literally the class is just like all ages, like people younger than me, people older than me. Like that's great. Unless the setting is like that or like literally the community of the show, I don't really want to watch it. Like I don't care about why. I'm like I want some spice. I want smut. Um you know, and like why isn't going to have that? And a lot of people in my age group or older are reading this stuff and they're like where is the spice? And it's like it's literally why you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. Read stuff for your age group. Um, and stop asking people to put it in there. So anyway, that was this week's episode of Now What Was I Talking About? I'm gonna end it there. And I will see you in October. Woo!